The rain was coming down like sheets of ice over Buffalo Bayou Park in Houston, Texas. Nia Vance stood on the slick pavement, soaked to the bone, holding a ripped manila folder against her chest. Just 2 hours ago, she was the undisputed queen of Houston tech, a 31-year-old billionaire CEO featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. Now, she didn't even have a single dollar to her name. Her sports car was gone. Her home locks were changed. Her company was stolen. 2 black SUVs rolled up on the curb, their bright headlights blinding her through the downpour. 2 tall men in dark raincoats stepped out, gloves already pulled tight over their knuckles. "Dominique wants to make sure you don't make it to morning, Miss Vance," one of the men sneered, pulling a heavy steel bar from his coat. He said it's easier to handle probate court when the former CEO isn't around to fight back. Nia's knees buckled. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She had no phone, no shoes on her feet, and no strength left to run. "Please," Nia choked out, her voice breaking against the sound of thunder. "I gave him everything. I loved him." Man stepped closer, raising the steel bar high. "Business is business, sweetheart." Nia closed her eyes, trembling, waiting for the blow that would end her life. Crunch! A sharp scream pierced through the roaring thunder. Nia opened her eyes in shock. The man with the steel bar was dropped flat on the wet pavement, groaning in pain. Standing over him was a shadow, a man standing 6'4", broad as a doorway, moving like an absolute predator in the night. In less than 3 seconds, the second attacker was slammed hard against the hood of the SUV, disarmed and knocked cold onto the grass. Nia scrambled backward in the mud, her breath catching in her throat. Who are you? Did Dom send you to finish me off?" The giant shadow turned around slow and steady. The glow of the streetlights caught his strong jawline, rich dark skin, and intense silver-gray eyes. He stepped closer, dropping to one knee right in front of her. Without saying a word, he unzipped his heavy black tactical jacket and wrapped it around her shivering shoulders. "Dominique Mercer doesn't own me, Miss Vance." His deep, low voice rumbled, steady as a heartbeat. "My name is Malachi Sterling, and as long as I am breathing, nobody in this city will ever put a finger on you again." Nia trembling inside his warm jacket, searching his face. "Why are you helping me? I don't have any money left to pay you." Malachi looked down into her eyes with an intensity that made her chest tighten. "I don't want your money, Nia. I've been watching your back for 3 years, and tonight we begin taking your life back." Did Nia Vance, a brilliant, self-made black woman who built an empire from the ground up, end up cornered in the rain, betrayed by her fiancé, her best friend, and her own half-brother? And who was this deadly stranger claiming to be her private protector? If you love dramatic stories about resilience, karmic revenge, and a deep romance that will keep you glued to your screen, you are in the right place. Before we dive into the dark secrets of Vance Global, smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of this journey. Now, let's get straight into how this nightmare started. To truly understand the nightmare on Buffalo Bayou, we have to go back 3 hours earlier to the 50th floor of the Vance Global building on Texas Avenue in downtown Houston. The glass monolith overlooked the entire city skyline, illuminated by soft indoor lights and gold interior walls. Nia Vance was standing at the head of the dark mahogany boardroom table. She was dressed in a sleek white power suit, her long dark curls styled to perfection. She thought she was walking into a late-night executive strategy session. Instead, she walked right into an execution of her legacy. Sitting across from her was Dominique "Dom" Mercer, her fiancé of 3 years. Beside him sat Brianna Hayes, Nia's childhood best friend and personal executive assistant. And leaning against the glass wall with a drink in his hand was Tyson Vance, Nia's 29-year-old half-brother. "What is the meaning of this, Dom?" Nia asked, frowning as she looked at the heavy legal documents laid out on the table. "Why are the legal team and private security standing outside the door?" Dom didn't stand up to greet her like he usually did. He didn't smile. He just adjusted his gold watch and looked up at her with eyes cold as ice. "Sit down, Nia," Dom said, his voice completely devoid of the warmth she had loved for 3 years. "We are short on time and the police will be here in 20 minutes. Nia felt a sudden spike of anxiety in her stomach. The police? Dom, what are you talking about? Brianna leaned forward, crossing her legs, taking a sip from a crystal glass. Oh, stop playing innocent, Nia. It's embarrassing. Nia turned her gaze to her best friend. Brianna, what is wrong with you? Tyson pushed off the wall and dropped a thick binder right in front of Nia. What's wrong is that your little reign as the corporate princess of Houston is officially over, big sister. Nia picked up the documents with shaking fingers. As her eyes scanned the pages, the blood drained completely from her face. It was a formal corporate surrender along with a confession of federal wire fraud and embezzlement. Her forged signature was stamped across every single page, complete with a stolen digital biometric thumbprint. This is fake, Nia whispered, her voice cracking. This isn't real. I didn't transfer $70 million to offshore accounts. Dom, tell me this is a sick joke. Dom slowly leaned back in his leather chair. It's not a joke, Nia. It's a corporate takeover. You see, you were always too smart for your own good. You wanted to run this company with morals and ethics. But Brianna, Tyson, and I, we prefer real power. Nia felt like the floor was falling out from under her. Dom, I loved you. I brought you into this company. I gave you a seat at my table. And that was your first mistake, Dom spat back, his voice dripping with arrogance. A real man doesn't want to sit at a table built by a woman. He wants to own it. You thought I actually wanted to marry you. You were just the key to the vault. Brianna let out a cruel, sharp laugh. And let's be honest, Nia, you worked too much anyway. Dom needed a real woman who knew how to pay attention to him. Nia looked between Brianna and Dom, her eyes widening in horror as the realization hit her like a freight train. You too? Oh, please, Brianna scoffed, running her manicured nails over Dom's shoulder. Did you really think he was working late at the office every weekend? We've been sleeping together in your private condo for 6 months. Tyson smirked, tapping his knuckles on the table. Sign the paper, Nia. Relinquish all your voting shares to the board. If you sign, Dom won't hand the wire fraud evidence to the district attorney tonight. You get to walk away with your life. If you don't, you'll be spending the next 20 years in a federal prison. Nia stood there, surrounded by the 3 people she trusted most in the world. Her fiancé, her best friend, her brother. They had stolen her company, destroyed her reputation, and ripped her heart into pieces, all in one single room. My father built this company, Nia said, tears finally breaking past her dark eyelashes. His blood is in these walls, Tyson. How could you betray our father's memory like this? Father loved you more, Tyson yelled, his face twisting with jealousy. He gave you the CEO chair. He left me with crumbs. Now sign the damn paper. 2 heavy security guards stepped into the room, grabbing Nia by her arms. Dom stood up, picked up a pen, and forced it into her fingers. Sign it, Nia, Dom whispered in her ear, his breath hot and disgusting against her skin. Or I promise you by tomorrow morning the news channels won't just report that you're a thief. They'll report that you lost your mind entirely. With a trembling hand and a broken spirit, Nia signed her name on the final line. She had built Vance Global into a multi-billion-dollar energy empire, but in 10 minutes they stripped her of every single thing she owned. Security, Dom commanded smoothly, waving his hand like she was garbage. Escort the former CEO out of the building. Strip her of her badge, her phone, and her car keys. She is never to step foot on Vance Global property again. Now, family, pause right there for a second. Can you believe the sheer wickedness of Dom, Brianna, and Tyson? Imagine giving your heart to a man and your loyalty to a friend, only for them to rob you blind and throw you to the dogs. What would you do if you found yourself stripped of everything in a single night? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to see how you all would handle this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that button right now because things are about to get even crazier. The security guards dragged Nia down to the lobby and threw her out into the blinding Texas rainstorm without her coat, her shoes, or her phone. She walked aimlessly down Texas Avenue, the cold rain soaking through her silk clothes, her feet bleeding on the gravel. She didn't know where to go. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her condo locks were changed. Her friends were all corporate associates who would turn their back on her the second the news broke. She eventually wandered into Buffalo Bayou Park, her legs giving out near the wet grass near the river. She collapsed on her knees, sobbing uncontrollably into the stormy night. That was when the two black SUVs had pulled up, sent by Dom to finish the job before she could ever talk to a lawyer. And that was when Malachi Sterling descended like an angel of death in the storm. After knocking the two hitmen unconscious, Malachi picked Nia up effortlessly, cradling her against his broad chest. He carried her straight to his custom-armored dark blue SUV parked under the shade of the trees. He placed her gently into the leather passenger seat, wrapped his warm tactical jacket tighter around her shivering body, and locked the doors before sliding into the driver's seat. Nia huddled into the warmth of the leather seat, clutching the jacket around her neck. The engine roared to life, a deep V8 rumble that vibrated through her boots. Where are we going?" Nia asked, her voice raspy from crying. "Are you taking me to the police?" Malachi put the vehicle in drive and pulled smoothly onto Memorial Drive, heading toward Interstate 45 North. His eyes remained fixed on the rain-slicked road ahead, his powerful hands gripping the leather steering wheel with calm control. "Police are currently compromised, Miss Vance," Malachi said softly. Dominique Mercer paid off two high-ranking detectives in the Houston Police Department 3 days ago. "If I drop you at a precinct, you will be processed directly into a holding cell without bail." Nia gasped, pressing her hand against her chest. How do you know all of this? Who are you really?" Malachi reached into his interior pocket and pulled out a small, laminated security clearance badge, passing it to her. "My name is Malachi Sterling," he repeated smoothly. "I spent 10 years in Army Special Forces before launching Sterling Private Defense. 3 years ago, your father, Marcus Vance, privately hired my firm." Nia turned her head fast, staring at him in utter disbelief. "My father? But my father passed away 2 years ago." "I know," Malachi replied, his silver-gray eyes softening slightly as he looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Your father was a brilliant man, Nia. He noticed Dominique hanging around you early on and he didn't trust him for a second. He hired me to run a long-term background check on Dom. Before your father passed, he gave me a strict mandate and a private trust fund." Nia's voice trembled. "What mandate?" he told me. "If the day ever comes where my daughter is stripped of her power and left alone, I want you to be her shield. Protect her life, guard her legacy, and help her destroy anyone who tries to hurt her." Tears overflowed from Nia's eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of pure despair. They were tears of deep, overwhelming emotional shock. Her father had seen the snakes coming from miles away. Even from the grave, her father was still reaching out to protect her. "I tried to warn your father about Dom's hidden shell companies 2 years ago," Malachi continued, his low voice soothing the quiet cabin of the SUV. "But before I could deliver the full file, your father had his fatal heart attack. Dom accelerated his timeline after that, playing the devoted, grieving boyfriend while slowly infiltrating your board. And you've been watching me this whole time," Nia whispered, looking at Malachi's sharp profile. "For 3 years," Malachi paused, his jaw tightening slightly. "Yes, I kept my distance because it was a contract, but watching you work, watching you build hospitals in low-income neighborhoods in Houston, watching your grace under pressure. It stopped being just a contract a long time ago, Nia." Nia's heart skipped a heavy beat. The air inside the SUV felt electric, charged with an intensity she had never felt with Dom in 3 entire years. They drove north for 45 minutes, leaving the bright lights of downtown Houston behind as they merged into the deep, quiet pine trees surrounding Lake Conroe. Malachi pulled through a heavy steel gate hidden behind a thick tree line. The gates closed automatically behind them. At the end of a long gravel driveway sat a massive, modern stone and glass compound overlooking the dark waters of the lake. "Welcome to the safe house," Malachi said, turning off the engine. "This property isn't registered under my name or any company. It doesn't exist on public maps. You are safe here." He opened his door, walked around to her side, and opened her door. Before she could even attempt to step out on her bare, bruised feet, Malachi leaned in and lifted her into his arms again. "I can walk," Nia murmured weakly, though her hands naturally clung to his broad shoulders. "Your feet are bleeding, Nia," Malachi said firmly, stepping toward the grand oak front doors of the compound. "You don't have to fight everything by yourself anymore. Let me carry the weight for a while." Inside, the safe house was warm and beautifully lit. High wood-paneled ceilings, a roaring stone fireplace, and state-of-the-art security monitors covered one wall. Malachi set her down gently on a plush leather sofa near the fireplace. He walked into the adjacent kitchen and returned moments later with a warm blanket, a first aid kit, and a steaming mug of tea. He dropped to his knees right in front of her, setting the kit on the floor. Without asking, he gently lifted her right foot, using a warm, damp towel to clean the rain and dirt from her cut skin. His large, calloused hands were amazingly gentle. Every touch was careful, almost reverent, as if he was handling the most precious glass in the world. Nia watched him, her breath hitching as he applied antiseptic and soft bandages to her small feet. "You're a lethal man, Malachi. I saw what you did to those hitmen in the park, but right now, you're being so gentle." Malachi looked up, his silver eyes locking onto hers. The reflection of the orange fire danced in his gaze. "I am only dangerous to people who try to harm what is good in this world," Malachi said softly. "And you, Nia Vance, are the purest thing I have ever seen." Before Nia could process the heat rising in her cheeks, a door down the hall swung open with a sharp click. "All right, boss, the encrypted firewalls are fully booted," a fast, energetic voice called out. Walking into the living room was a brilliant young Chinese-American woman wearing oversized glasses, an oversized hoodie, and holding a high-powered military laptop. This was Chloe Chen, 28 years old, a former top-tier cyberforensics investigator for the FBI and Malachi's head of intelligence. "Chloe," Nia gasped, recognizing her instantly. "You were the lead systems analyst at Vance Global 2 years ago." "You resigned out of nowhere," Chloe grinned, taking a quick sip from an energy drink. "I didn't resign, Miss Vance. Boss man here poached me and offered me triple my salary to keep an eye on your company's internal network from the outside. And let me tell you, working for Sterling Security is way more fun than listening to your trash ex-fiancé talk about his golf scores." Nia blinked, a sudden, tiny laugh escaping her lips despite her pain. "You hated Dom too." "Hated him." Chloe snorted, walking over and slapping her laptop onto the oak coffee table in front of Nia and Malachi. "Girl, Dominique Mercer had the personality of a wet paper towel and the moral compass of a hungry hyena. I've been waiting for the day we get to crush him." Chloe flipped the screen around, revealing a complex web of financial transactions, live satellite feeds, and encrypted audio files. "While you two were driving up I-45, Chloe explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard, Dom and Brianna threw an emergency press release out. They told the Houston Chronicle that you suffered a sudden nervous breakdown, stole corporate funds, and fled the state. The media is eating it up." Nia's chest tightened again. "They're destroying my name." "Them talk," Malachi's voice cut in, steady and hard as diamond. He stood up from the floor, leaning over the table beside Chloe. "The higher they build their tower of lies, the harder they fall when we pull the foundation out." Chloe pressed a key, bringing up a live security camera feed of Vance Global's server farm. "Here's the good news, Miss Vance. Dom thinks he swept the servers clean when he forced you to sign those documents, but he forgot that I built the original architecture for Vance Global. He wiped the public drive, but he didn't wipe the deep cold storage backup." Nia sat up straight, her eyes lighting up with corporate brilliance. "The cold storage drive. It logs every physical keystroke and biometric override made in the building." "Bingo," Chloe cheered, snapping her fingers. "Every time Dom or Brianna touched your account while you were sleeping, it created an unalterable digital footprint. We have the proof that they forged your signature and injected the malware into your system." Nia looked from Chloe's bright, smiling face to Malachi's strong, unyielding presence. For the first time since walking into that boardroom, the suffocating weight in her chest began to shatter. She wasn't just a victim hiding in the dark. She had an elite war room behind her. "Long will it take to extract the full data chain?" Nia asked, her voice regaining that sharp, commanding authority that made her a legendary executive. "Need 48 hours to bypass Dom's new security codes," Chloe replied confidently. "Once I'm through, we'll have enough evidence to put Dom, Brianna, and your useless brother away for treason, fraud, and attempted murder." Malachi folded his massive arms over his chest, looking down at Nia with a rare, approving smile. You heard the lady. 48 hours. Until then you rest, you eat, and you let us protect you. Hold on to your seats, family, because this is where the plot thickens. Nia has a secret team. Her father's shadow contract is revealed, and Chloe just gave them the weapon they need to take Dom down. Who else feels that dynamic spark growing between Nia and Malachi? If you are loving this protective hero energy, smash that like button right now and let me know in the comments if you think Nia should take her empire back or burn it to the ground. Now let's keep this momentum going. Later that night, the safe house was completely quiet except for the subtle hum of the security monitors and the crackle of the dying fireplace. Nia couldn't sleep. Dressed in a soft gray cotton sweater and sweatpants provided by Chloe, she walked quietly out to the floor-to-ceiling glass patio doors overlooking Lake Conroe. The dark water reflected the pale light of the moon. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the deep, painful sting of betrayal still throbbing in her heart. 3 years of her life given to a man who wanted her dead. Lifetime of friendship given to a woman who wanted her place. You should be resting, a deep voice said gently from behind her. Nia turned to see Malachi stepping onto the patio. He was wearing a simple black t-shirt and dark cargo pants, exposing the massive muscles of his forearms and a long, jagged scar running along his left wrist. I can't sleep, Nia admitted, turning back to look at the lake. Every time I close my eyes, I see Dom's face. I hear Brianna laughing. I keep asking myself, how was I so blind, Malachi? How did I let them take everything right out from under me? Malachi walked up beside her, standing close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his large frame. He looked out over the dark water. You weren't blind, Nia, Malachi said softly. You were good. You operated out of trust, honor, and love. Monsters like Dominique Mercer thrive because good people can't imagine doing something so twisted. That isn't your weakness. That was your purity. Nia looked up at him, her dark blue eyes shining in the moonlight. And what about you, Malachi? Are you a good man? Malachi slowly turned his head to meet her gaze. His silver-gray eyes were intense, carrying the weight of a man who had walked through the dark valleys of war and come out alive on the other side. A man who does whatever it takes to protect what is precious to me, Malachi murmured, stepping an inch closer. His big hand reached out, his long fingers gently brushing a strand of dark curl behind her ear. His touch sent a shiver straight down her spine. And right now, nothing in this world is more precious to me than keeping you breathing. Nia's breath caught in her throat. The distance between them vanished. She could smell his scent, cedarwood, fresh rain, and clean cotton. For 3 years, Dom had touched her like he was collecting an asset, but the way Malachi looked at her, it made her feel alive, desired, and protected in a way she had never experienced in her entire life. Malachi, she whispered, her hands gently resting on his broad chest. She could feel the steady, powerful rhythm of his heart beating under her palms. I'm right here, Nia, he promised, his voice a low vibration in his chest. I'm not going anywhere. Suddenly, a loud, sharp red light began flashing on the patio frame. Beep, beep, beep. The silent perimeter alarm went off inside the house. Malachi's entire demeanor shifted in a fraction of a second. The gentle protector vanished, replaced instantly by an absolute cold-blooded tactical soldier. In one swift motion, he pulled a sleek suppressed sidearm from his hip holster and placed his broad body right in front of Nia, shielding her completely. Chloe came sprinting out of the intelligence room, holding her laptop with wide eyes. Boss, we've got a breach. 3 unknown vehicles just tore through the front perimeter gate. Nia's heart leaped into her throat. Dom, how did he find us? He didn't find us, Chloe yelled over the blaring alarm, her fingers flying across her screen. Brianna tracked your personal smartwatch signal before we turned it off. They sent a tactical team to finish the job, Malachi's jaw set like iron. He didn't show a single grain of fear. He turned his head slightly toward Nia, his silver eyes flashing with deadly promise. Chloe, take Nia into the reinforced panic room downstairs and lock the titanium doors, Malachi commanded, his voice ice cold. No, Nia cried out, grabbing Malachi's arm. Malachi, there's too many of them. You can't fight them alone. Malachi looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her terrified eyes with a dark, confident smirk. Nia, they came to my house trying to take my queen, Malachi said, racking the slide of his weapon with a lethal click. They aren't hunting us tonight. They just walked into a butcher shop. Will Malachi be able to hold off the tactical team on his own? Will Chloe get the files decrypted before they are overrun? And how far will Dom go to cover up his crimes? Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your theories in the comments right now. What do you think is going to happen next? Chloe grabbed Nia's wrist and pulled her toward the staircase. Come on, girl. The panic room has a full camera feed of the whole property. We can still see everything. That was when Nia's mind snapped back into focus. The fear in her chest hardened into something sharp, something useful. Wait, Nia said, digging in her heels. Malachi, give me an earpiece. Malachi paused, raising an eyebrow. What? You have thermal cameras covering this property, but you can't watch screens while you're moving, Nia said quickly, her CEO voice cutting through the panic. I can. Put me in that panic room with a comms link and I'll be your eyes. You're not fighting alone tonight. I won't allow it. For half a second, Malachi just stared at her. Then the corner of his mouth lifted into something dangerously close to pride. Chloe, Malachi said, pulling a small black earpiece from his tactical belt and pressing it into Nia's palm. Get her connected. Already on it, Chloe replied. 30 seconds later, the titanium door of the underground panic room sealed shut behind Nia and Chloe with a heavy hydraulic hiss. The walls were lined with monitors showing every angle of the compound. 3 black SUVs sat with their doors open near the front driveway. Dark figures in tactical gear were spreading out across the property like roaches. 9 of them, Chloe said, typing fast on her laptop. Professional gear, military formation. Brianna really splurged on this one. Up above, every light in the safe house suddenly died. Malachi had killed the power. The entire compound plunged into darkness and the camera feed switched to ghostly green night vision. Malachi, talk to me, Nia whispered into her earpiece, her heart pounding. I'm here, sweetheart, Malachi's calm voice rumbled in her ear. Now guide me. Nia leaned toward the monitors, her eyes scanning the green shapes moving across her screens. 2 men moving along the east fence line, 1 circling toward the garage, 3 more coming up the main driveway toward the front door. Copy, Malachi replied. What happened next, Nia would remember for the rest of her life. Through the night vision feed, she watched a shadow separate itself from the oak trees near the driveway. The shadow moved low and silent, flowing through the darkness like water. The first mercenary never even heard him coming. Malachi rose up behind the man, wrapped one massive arm around his neck and lowered him gently to the grass, unconscious in under 4 seconds. The second man turned at the sound, raising his weapon. Malachi was already moving. He closed the distance in 2 long strides, knocked the weapon aside with his forearm, drove his elbow into the man's chest, and swept his legs out from under him. The mercenary hit the ground and didn't get back up. Oh my God, Chloe breathed, watching the screen with wide eyes. He's not a bodyguard, he's a whole action movie. Down, Malachi's voice came through the earpiece, steady as ever. Where are the rest? Garage, 1 man. He's about to come around the corner, Nia said, tracking the green shape. Malachi, he's 10 feet from you on your left. Malachi pressed himself flat against the stone wall. The mercenary rounded the corner, weapon raised, and found nothing but empty air. Then the darkness above him moved. Malachi dropped down from the stone ledge, landed behind the man, and put him to sleep before he could make a sound. But then Nia saw something that made her blood run cold. Malachi, Nia shouted into the earpiece. The dock. 2 men came in from the lake side. That's a blind spot, no cameras past the boathouse. They're moving up the hill behind you right now. On the screen, Nia watched Malachi spin around. A flashlight beam cut through the dark and a tall mercenary lunged at him with a long combat knife. The blade sliced across Malachi's left forearm before he caught the man's wrist, twisted hard, and sent the knife spinning into the wet grass. 1 heavy strike to the jaw, and the man folded like a lawn chair. The second lakeside attacker raised his weapon. Malachi threw the knife first. It buried itself handle deep in the man's shoulder strap, pinning him to the boathouse door. 3 seconds later, that man was face down in the dirt, snoring. "Malachi, you're bleeding," Nia gasped, seeing him clutch his forearm. "It's a scratch," Malachi replied calmly. "You just saved my life, Nia. That flank was perfectly timed." "Save each other," Nia whispered back, her hands trembling on the console. "Remember that." Remaining 4 mercenaries regrouped near the driveway, panicking now, shouting into their radios. Their leader, a tall, square-jawed man with a buzz cut, grabbed his radio and yelled, "Sterling, we know you're out there. You can't kill all of us." Malachi's voice came over the man's own stolen radio, calm and almost amused. "You're right. I can't kill all of you, but you're currently standing in a kill box surrounded by an ex-Special Forces operator, and your 9-man team is down to 4. Walk back to your vehicles, leave your weapons on the ground, and I'll let you crawl home to whoever paid you." Buzzcut leader hesitated. Then he made the worst decision of his life. He raised his weapon toward the tree line. What followed took exactly 41 seconds. Nia watched on the thermal feed as Malachi moved through those 4 men like a storm moves through a cornfield. Disarm, drop, zip tie, move, disarm, drop, zip tie, move. By the time the red alarm lights stopped flashing, all 9 mercenaries were sitting in a row on the wet driveway, hands zip-tied behind their backs, weapons piled in the grass, egos completely destroyed. Malachi pulled the buzzing phone out of the leader's tactical vest and held it up to the man's face. "Who sent you?" Malachi asked quietly. The buzzcut leader spat on the ground and smirked. "A woman. Paid $500,000 for the job, triple if we brought proof." "You just bought yourself a bigger target, Sterling." "Chloe," Malachi said into his earpiece, holding the phone up toward the camera. "Trace this." Already cloning it, Chloe's voice sang through the comms. "Give me 90 seconds and I'll know what Brianna Hayes ate for breakfast." Malachi looked directly into the camera lens, and Nia could have sworn he was looking straight at her. "All clear," Malachi said. "Come upstairs, Nia, it's over. Family, pause right there." Nia refused to hide and became Malachi's eyes in the dark. That is what real partnership looks like. She went from victim to commander in one single night. Tell me in the comments right now, would you have trusted Malachi to fight alone, or would you have grabbed that earpiece like Nia did? And if you are loving this power couple energy, smash that like button so YouTube knows you want more stories like this. Now let's keep going, because what Chloe finds on that phone is about to change everything. When Nia came up from the panic room, the first thing she saw was the blood running down Malachi's left forearm. "Sit down," Nia ordered, pointing at the kitchen counter. "Nia, it's a graze," Malachi started. "Malachi Sterling, you carried me out of the rain and bandaged my feet last night," Nia said, pulling the first aid kit from under the counter. "Now sit down before I make you sit down," Chloe snorted from her laptop. "Boss, I'd listen to her. She ran a billion-dollar company. She's scarier than you." Malachi actually chuckled, a low, warm rumble, and sat down on the counter stool. Nia cleaned the shallow cut with steady hands, her fingers gentle against his skin. Outside, through the window, red and blue lights began to flash in the distance. "Montgomery County Sheriff," Malachi explained. "This is their jurisdiction, not Houston PD. Dom doesn't own them. Anonymous tip about armed trespassers. Those 9 men will wake up in a county cell facing weapons charges, and none of them can connect us to anything. Brianna, though," Chloe spun her laptop around, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Brianna is about to have a very bad month. The payment to these clowns came from a shell account, but the shell account was funded directly from Brianna Hayes' personal account. She basically wrote murder for hire on the memo line. I've seen smarter criminals on reality TV." Nia finished wrapping the bandage around Malachi's forearm, but she didn't let go of his arm. Her thumb rested softly against the old jagged scar on his left wrist, the one she had noticed on the patio. "How did you get this one?" Nia asked quietly. The warmth faded from Malachi's face. He looked down at the scar for a long moment. "My last deployment," Malachi said, his voice low. "A private military contractor sold our patrol route to the highest bidder, corporate guy, expensive suit, soft hands, big smile. My unit walked straight into an ambush. I lost 3 brothers that night." He paused, his jaw tight. "That's why your father's contract meant something to me, Nia. Marcus Vance didn't just offer me money. He offered me a chance to protect something pure from men like that, men like Dom. Nia's eyes burned with tears. My father used to say something when he taught me chess. He said, "Baby, protect your queen, but never hide her. A hidden queen wins nothing." She looked up at Malachi, her voice breaking. "Tonight you let me fight beside you. You have no idea what that means to me." Malachi reached up with his bandaged arm and gently cupped her cheek. His thumb brushed away a single tear rolling down her face. "Know exactly what it means," Malachi murmured, "because it's the same thing you mean to me." Air between them caught fire. Nia leaned in. Malachi leaned down. Their lips were an inch apart, hearts hammering in perfect rhythm. "Crack the vault." Chloe's scream shattered the moment like a brick through a window. She came sprinting out of the intelligence room, waving her laptop over her head. Oh no, I am so sorry," Chloe said, skidding to a stop and immediately turning around. "I can come back. I can uncrack the vault, pretend I'm not here." Nia laughed, her cheeks burning, and Malachi closed his eyes and exhaled slowly like a man praying for patience. "Chloe," Malachi said through his teeth, "what did you find?" "Everything, boss," Chloe said, suddenly serious. "The cold storage backup decrypted 2 hours early, and Nia," Chloe's voice softened, "you need to sit down for this." 3 of them gathered around the oak coffee table as Chloe pulled up file after file. "First, the good stuff," Chloe said. "Complete keystroke logs proving Dom and Brianna forged your biometric signature while you were asleep. Plus audio from the building's security microphones of all 3 of them, Dom, Brianna, and Tyson, literally celebrating in your office and describing the whole fraud out loud. On tape, with dates." "That's the company back," Nia breathed. "That's them in prison," Chloe corrected. "But then I found a buried folder in Dom's shell network, and this one," Chloe hesitated. "This one is bad." She opened a financial record. A $2 million wire transfer from Dom's private shell account to a doctor named Leonard Weiss, a private physician in River Oaks. The transfer was dated 2 days before Marcus Vance's fatal heart attack. "No," Nia whispered. The word came out small and broken. "There's more," Chloe said gently. "Your father had requested an emergency board meeting 3 days before he died. The agenda item was flagged and deleted. The topic was termination of Dominique Mercer and full audit of Meridian Trust." "Meridian Trust?" Malachi leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "That's the money behind Dom, a private investment firm out of Dallas, run by a man named Richard Kane," Chloe said, pulling up a photo of a silver-haired white man in an expensive suit. "Kane needed Vance Global's energy contracts to wash his money. Your father found the trail, Nia, and 2 days after Dom paid that doctor," Chloe couldn't finish the sentence. "Days later, my father had a heart attack in his sleep," Nia said, her voice completely hollow. The room went dead silent. Nia stared at the screen, at the date, at her father's name. Then her legs gave out. Malachi caught her before she hit the floor. He lowered them both onto the rug in front of the fireplace and held her against his chest as the sobs tore out of her, deep, shaking, 3 years of buried grief ripping free all at once. "They killed him," Nia cried into Malachi's shirt. "He knew. He tried to stop them and they killed him for it. And I let Dom comfort me at the funeral. I let that snake hold me at my own father's grave." Malachi wrapped both arms around her and held her tighter, his chin resting on top of her head, his own eyes burning red. "Let it out," Malachi whispered, rocking her gently. I've got you, Nia." Chloe wiped her own eyes and quietly looked away. When Nia finally lifted her head, the tears were still on her cheeks, but something new was burning behind her eyes. Something Malachi had never seen before. It wasn't pain, it was war. "They killed my father," Nia said slowly, each word carved out of steel. "They stole my company. They sent men to kill me twice. Malachi, I don't just want my company back anymore." "Then what do you want?" Malachi asked. "I want their freedom," Nia said. "I want their names. I want every door in this country to slam shut in their faces. I want Dom, Brianna, Tyson, Dr. Weiss, and Richard Kane to lose everything in public in front of the whole world, the same way they took it from me." Malachi looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, slow and dangerous. "Now you sound like Marcus Vance's daughter," Malachi said. "Speaking of public," Chloe said quietly, turning her laptop around one more time. "Then you two need to see this. Vance Global just announced the Founders Gala. This Friday night at the Post Oak Hotel in Uptown Houston, Dom is being voted in as permanent chairman. Chloe swallowed hard. And the press release says he's also announcing his engagement to Brianna Hayes. She's wearing your ring, Nia, your grandmother's ring. Nia stood up slowly from the rug. She walked to the screen and looked at the photo, Brianna's hand held up to the camera, wearing the ring that had belonged to 3 generations of Vance women. Then Friday it is, Nia said, her voice cold and calm as winter rain. We have 4 days. Chloe, you said you have a contact inside the FBI, Special Agent Dana Whitfield. Chloe nodded. She's been building a case against Richard Kane for 2 years. She's clean and she's hungry. If I hand her this data chain, she can have federal agents waiting at that gala. The call, Nia said. And Chloe, there's one more person we need, Evelyn Brooks. Godmother, Chloe asked. The board member. Auntie Evie never believed the lies for 1 second, Nia said. She controls the vote that night. If she holds the floor open long enough for me to walk through those doors, we win. Security. Malachi asked, stepping up beside her. Nia turned and looked up at him, at the bandage on his arm, at the fire in his silver eyes. Security, Nia said softly, is already standing right next to me. Meanwhile, across the city, in a penthouse overlooking downtown Houston, Dominique Mercer was learning that his 9-man kill team had just been dumped on the doorstep of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. You idiot, Brianna shrieked, packing the marble floor in Nia's stolen diamond bracelet. You said they'd finish her. You said it was handled, Dom. She has help. Tyson slurred from the bar, pouring his 4th drink. I told you, man, I told you we should have just paid her off. Now she's got some commando and a hacker and Shut up, Tyson, Dom snapped, loosening his tie with shaking hands. Then his phone rang. The screen showed a Dallas number. Dom went pale. Mr. Kane, Dom answered, his voice suddenly small. Richard Kane's voice on the line was smooth, quiet, and terrifying. I hear our little problem is still breathing, Dominique. That disappoints me. You have until Friday. If that woman walks into your gala with whatever she thinks she has, we will all spend the rest of our lives in federal prison. Kane paused. So I've already sent someone. His name is Silas. He's never missed. Consider this my final investment in you. Line went dead. Back at Lake Conroe, Nia stood in front of the bedroom mirror in a simple black dress Chloe had ordered for her, the first piece of armor for Friday's war. On the television behind her, the news showed her own face under the words "Wanted," and beneath it, a $1 million reward for information leading to her arrest, funded by Vance Global's new chairman. Nia picked up the remote and turned the television off. Malachi appeared behind her in the mirror, tall and solid and unshaken, resting his hands gently on her shoulders. Friday night, Malachi said softly, you walk into that ballroom as the queen you are. Nia turned around in his arms and looked up at him, and for the first time since the rain, she smiled. And they leave in chains, Nia said. Oh, family. The kill team failed, the truth about her father's death is out, the FBI is circling, and now Dom has a professional hunter named Silas coming for Nia. And she is still planning to walk straight into that gala in 4 days. Will Silas find her before Friday? Will Auntie Evie hold the boardroom floor? And what happens when Nia Vance finally comes face to face with the people who murdered her father? Smash that like button, subscribe right now, and drop your predictions in the comments. Because the coronation of vengeance is coming, and trust me, you want a front row seat. The Founders Gala was 4 days away. Dominique Mercer was about to be crowned permanent chairman of Vance Global, engaged to the woman who stole her best friend's life, wearing a ring that belonged to 3 generations of Vance women. And somewhere out in the Texas night, a professional hunter named Silas was tracking Nia Vance with $1 million on her head and orders to make sure she never saw Friday. The countdown to Friday began with a name Nia hadn't spoken in 3 years. Evie. Nia said quietly into the encrypted phone Chloe had set up in the Lake Conroe war room. It's Nia. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then came the sound of a chair scraping, a door closing, and a woman's voice, older, warm, and shaking with emotion. Baby girl, Evelyn Brooks breathed. I knew it. I knew you weren't crazy, and I knew you weren't a thief. Tell me you're safe. I'm safe, Auntie Evie, Nia said, her eyes burning. And I have everything. The forged signatures, the shell accounts, all of it. But I need one thing from you on Friday night." Evelyn Brooks was 62 years old, a founding board member of Vance Global, and the godmother who had taught Nia how to walk in heels and negotiate a contract at the same time. Her voice hardened into pure steel. "Name it," Evelyn said. "Needs the board to vote him in as permanent chairman at the gala," Nia explained. "You have the seniority to demand an open floor session before the vote." "Hold that floor, Auntie Evie. Keep them talking. Keep every camera in that ballroom pointed at the stage. Because at exactly 9 o'clock I am walking through those doors and I need the whole world watching when I do." "Honey," Evelyn said, and Nia could hear the smile in her voice, "I will talk until my shoes wear out. Now you listen to me. Your father didn't raise a victim. He raised a hurricane. You come get what's yours." The call ended and Nia sat back in her chair, heart pounding. The plan was in motion. But 4 days is a long time when a hunter named Silas is getting paid triple for proof of a body. Wednesday night. 2 days before the gala, Nia was in the intelligence room with Chloe, reviewing the seating chart of the Post Oak Hotel ballroom when the perimeter alarm gave a single soft chime. Not the screaming red alert from the mercenary attack. Just one quiet chime. Chloe's fingers froze over her keyboard. "That's not right," Chloe whispered. "That's the dock sensor." One blip, then nothing. Like something stepped on it and then didn't. Malachi was already moving. He pulled his sidearm, killed the interior lights, and pressed Nia gently behind the reinforced kitchen island. "Chloe, cameras," Malachi ordered quietly. "I'm cycling them all," Chloe said, her voice tight. "There's nothing out there, boss. No heat signatures, no movement, nothing on any." The glass patio door exploded inward, not shattered by a bullet. Exploded, frame and all, as a small flash device rolled across the hardwood and detonated with a burst of blinding white light and a sound like the sky cracking open. Nia's ears screamed. The world went white and sideways. Through the ringing she heard Malachi roar her name, and then she saw him, moving through the smoke like a man made of pure instinct, placing his body between her and the patio. A figure stepped through the broken glass. Tall, lean. Dressed head to toe in matte black, his face half covered, eyes calm and empty as deep water. He moved like a ghost, no wasted motion, no fear. "Silas," Malachi growled. "Sterling," Silas replied, his voice soft and almost polite. "Kane sends his regards. Stand aside. This is business, nothing personal." "Everything about her is personal," Malachi said, and opened fire. What happened next was unlike anything Nia had ever seen, even on the night of the mercenary attack. Because Silas was not a hired thug. He was a professional, and he was very, very good. He twisted sideways, and the first 2 shots missed him by inches. He closed the distance to Malachi in 3 silent strides, and the 2 men collided like freight trains. Malachi's weapon was knocked across the floor. Silas drew a short blade, and suddenly the kitchen became a war zone of counters crashing, glass shattering, and 2 men fighting at a speed Nia's eyes could barely follow. Malachi drove Silas through the dining table, splitting it in half. Silas rolled, kicked Malachi's knee, and slashed. Malachi blocked with his forearm, the same forearm already bandaged from the knife cut, and Nia saw the red bloom through the white gauze. "Malachi," Nia screamed. "Stay down," Malachi shouted back, never taking his eyes off Silas. Silas reset his stance and smiled behind his mask. "You're good, Sterling, but you're protecting a target and I'm not. That means you'll die tired." "Then I guess I better not get tired," Malachi said. Nia's mind was racing. She scanned the room, the broken glass, the scattered weapons, the emergency controls. And then her eyes landed on the security panel by the hallway. The fire suppression system. Chloe had upgraded it herself, a high-pressure foam system designed to stop server room fires in seconds. Nia crawled along the floor behind the island, staying low, glass cutting her palms. She reached the panel, punched in the override code Chloe had made her memorize, and slammed her palm on the manual release. The ceiling erupted. High-pressure white foam blasted down across the entire living room in a roaring, blinding cloud. Silas spun toward the sound, momentarily blind, and that half-second was all Malachi Sterling needed. Malachi caught Silas's knife hand, twisted until the blade clattered to the floor, drove his forehead into Silas's nose, and locked both arms around the man's neck from behind. Silas thrashed, elbowed, stomped, But Malachi's arms were iron, and slowly, inch by inch, the hunter's struggles faded until he went limp in the foam. Silence. Just the hiss of the suppression system and Malachi's heavy breathing. Nia ran to him through the foam and threw her arms around his neck. His heart was hammering against her chest like a war drum. "Bleeding again," Nia sobbed, touching his forearm. "And you're brilliant," Malachi panted, pulling her close. "The fire system, Nia, that was genius." "I learned from the best," Nia whispered. "My father used to say, never fight the man in front of you, change the room around him." Chloe stumbled out of the hallway, coughing, holding her laptop over her head like it was a newborn baby. "Everybody alive, cool, great." "Because I just traced the comm device in that creep's ear, and it pinged straight to a Dallas number belonging to one Richard Kane." Chloe grinned through the foam dripping down her glasses. "We now have the money man on tape ordering a hit. Friday just became a national holiday." Malachi zip-tied Silas to a steel support beam, then turned to Nia. The look in his silver eyes had changed. There was fear in them now, not for himself, but for her. "That was Kane's best," Malachi said quietly. "And it was close, too close. Nia, after Friday, there's no more plan, there's no more backup. Everything ends in that ballroom, win or lose." Nia looked at him, at this man who had carried her out of the rain, fought 9 mercenaries, and now stood bleeding in a room full of foam for her. "Then let's go win," Nia said. "Family, I need you to stop and breathe for a second because that was too close. Silas the hunter is zip-tied to a beam. Kane is on tape ordering a hit, and the gala is now less than 2 days away. Tell me in the comments right now, if you were Nia, would you still walk into that ballroom after everything that's happened? And if you're rooting for this queen, hit that like button and subscribe, because the finale of this finale is about to blow your mind. Thursday night. The night before the gala, the safe house was quiet. Chloe had fallen asleep at her desk, surrounded by energy drink cans, the completed evidence package finally encrypted and delivered into the hands of FBI Special Agent Dana Whitfield. Silas had been handed over to federal custody that afternoon with an anonymous bow on top. Nia stood on the patio, wrapped in a blanket, watching the moonlight ripple across Lake Conroe. Tomorrow night, she would either reclaim her life or lose it forever. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. "Shaking," Malachi said softly, stepping out beside her. "I'm terrified," Nia admitted. "Malachi, I've faced boardrooms, bankruptcies, and betrayals. But tomorrow I have to look into the eyes of the man who murdered my father. What if I freeze? What if I break?" Malachi turned her gently to face him. He took her trembling hands and pressed them flat against his chest, over his heart. "Do you feel that?" Malachi asked. His heartbeat was slow, deep, and steady, a drum that never panicked. "That's yours now," Malachi said. "When you walk into that ballroom tomorrow and your hands start shaking, you remember this sound. Because wherever you are, Nia Vance, this heart is walking in right behind you." Nia looked up at him, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. "Why, Malachi? The contract ended when my father died. You've bled for me. You've nearly died for me. Why?" Malachi's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because 3 years ago, I watched a woman on a security feed give her entire Christmas bonus to a janitor whose daughter needed surgery, and then work until midnight so the company wouldn't lose the money. I watched her build schools and fight for people who would never know her name. I fell in love with a woman through a camera lens, Nia, and I told myself it was just a contract. But the night I carried you out of that rain, I knew." His thumb brushed her tears away. "I'm not protecting you because your father paid me. I'm protecting you because you're the love of my life." Words hit Nia like warm light after a long winter. She rose on her toes and Malachi bent down, and finally their lips met. It wasn't hurried. It wasn't desperate. It was the slow, certain kiss of 2 people who had walked through fire and found each other on the other side. The moonlight on the lake, the quiet Texas night, and a love that had waited 3 years to be spoken aloud. When they finally pulled apart, Nia rested her forehead against his. "After tomorrow," Nia whispered, "no more contracts, no more hiding. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," Malachi promised. "Now come inside. My queen needs her rest. Tomorrow she goes to war." Friday night. The Post Oak Hotel, uptown Houston, the grand ballroom glittered like a diamond mine. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids on every table, 500 of Houston's richest and most powerful people in tuxedos and gowns. A string quartet played softly. Camera crews from every local station lined the walls. On the stage, Dominique Mercer stood at the podium in a custom tuxedo, glowing with victory. Beside him, Brianna Hayes beamed in a gold gown, her hand raised so everyone could see the stolen Vance family ring. In the front row, Tyson Vance sat drunk on champagne and stolen power. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dom announced smoothly, "tonight marks a new era for Vance Global, an era of strength, stability, and honest leadership after the tragic downfall of my former fiancé." The crowd murmured politely. Brianna dabbed a fake tear. "Before the vote," a commanding voice rang out, "I invoke my right as senior board member to an open-floor session." Evelyn Brooks rose from the board table, elegant in deep purple, every eye in the ballroom turning to her. Dom's smile tightened. "Evelyn, this is highly irregular. The bylaws, Dominique," Evelyn said sweetly. "Read them sometime. Now, since we're talking about the history of this company, let me tell you all about the woman who actually built it." 20 glorious minutes, Evelyn Brooks held that ballroom hostage. She told stories about Nia, about Marcus Vance, about loyalty. The cameras rolled. Dom checked his watch. Brianna's smile curdled, and at exactly 9 o'clock, every light in the ballroom flickered. The massive screens behind the stage, which had been playing a tribute video to Vance Global, suddenly cut to black. Then a file appeared, a wire transfer, $2 million from Dominique Mercer to Dr. Leonard Weiss, dated 2 days before Marcus Vance's death. "What is this?" Dom shouted. "Turn that off, somebody kill the screens." Then came the audio, Dom's own voice, crystal clear, filling every corner of the silent ballroom. "Once the old man is gone, the girl is easy. She actually thinks I love her. Once she's dead or in prison, the whole empire is ours." 500 people gasped as one. Brianna's champagne glass shattered on the floor. Tyson stood up so fast his chair fell over. And then the grand oak doors of the ballroom swung open. Nia Vance walked in. She wore a floor-length gown of deep royal blue, her curls crowned like a queen, her heels striking the marble like a heartbeat. Every camera in Houston swung toward her. The room parted before her like the sea. And one step behind her, in a perfectly tailored black suit, walked Malachi Sterling, his silver eyes scanning the crowd like a lion guarding his pride. "Hello, Dominique," Nia said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. "Miss me?" "Security," Dom screamed. "Arrest her, she's a wanted fugitive, she's insane." "Actually," Nia said calmly, walking slowly down the center aisle, "the only people being arrested tonight are on that stage. You see, while you were buying tuxedos, my team was delivering 3 years of evidence to the FBI. The forged signatures, the offshore accounts, the wire fraud." She stopped at the foot of the stage. "And the $2 million payment to Dr. Weiss 2 days before my father's heart gave out. Dr. Weiss confessed this afternoon, Dom. He's already in custody. He told them everything." Dom's face went gray. Brianna grabbed his arm. "Dom, do something." "Oh, and Brianna," Nia added, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "That ring on your finger belonged to my grandmother. Enjoy wearing it to booking." That was when Dom snapped. His mask of charm finally shattered, and in front of 500 witnesses and a dozen rolling cameras, he yanked a small pistol from inside his tuxedo jacket and pointed it straight at Nia. "You ruined everything," Dom screamed. "I should have finished you in the rain that night. If I'm going down, you're going down with me." He never even saw Malachi move. One heartbeat, Dom was raising the gun. The next, his wrist was trapped in Malachi's iron grip, twisted sharply until the pistol clattered to the marble floor. Malachi swept Dom's legs, dropped him to his knees in front of the entire ballroom, and held him there, one hand on his shoulder, calm as a statue. "You had your chance to touch her," Malachi said quietly, his voice somehow carrying through the silent room. "You will never get another." And right on cue, the ballroom doors burst open for the second time that night. FBI Special Agent Dana Whitfield strode in with a dozen federal agents, badges raised. "Dominique Mercer, Brianna Hayes, Tyson Vance," Agent Whitfield announced. "You are under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit murder." "And Richard Kane," she added, holding up her phone, "was arrested in Dallas 40 minutes ago. He sends his regards." Actually, no, he doesn't. He's blaming all of you. Ballroom erupted. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Brianna screamed and cried as agents pulled her off the stage, the Vance family ring slipping off her finger and rolling across the marble, where Nia calmly picked it up and slid it back onto her own hand where it belonged. Tyson tried to run and made it exactly 4 steps before an agent tackled him into the dessert table, sending him and a 7-tier chocolate cake crashing to the floor in what several witnesses later called the most satisfying thing they'd ever seen. And Dom, on his knees, looked up at Nia with tears streaming down his face. "Nia," Dom choked out, "please, baby, I loved you. You have to believe some of it was real. Tell them to stop." Nia looked down at the man she had once planned to marry. And she felt it then, the thing she had been chasing since the rain. Not revenge, peace. "You didn't ruin me, Dominique," Nia said softly. "You stripped away everything I thought I needed so I could finally see what I actually was. Take him away." Agents hauled Dom to his feet and marched him past 500 people who had come to crown him and stayed to watch him fall. In the middle of the chaos, the cameras and the flashing lights, Nia Vance turned around, walked straight into Malachi Sterling's arms, and finally let herself breathe. "Hold on, family, because I know you felt that. The cake tackle, the ring rolling back to its rightful owner. If this gave you chills, smash that like button right now and tell me your favorite moment in the comments. And stay with me because this story isn't over yet. The most beautiful part is still to come, 6 months later." The spring sun set over downtown Houston, painting the glass tower of Vance Global in gold and rose. The company's stock had doubled since Nia's return. The headlines had changed from scandal to legend. "The Queen returns." Evelyn Brooks sat happily on the board, finally retired from holding ballrooms hostage. Chloe Chen was now the youngest chief technology officer in company history, and she had renamed the server room the Vault, just to be dramatic about it. And on the private rooftop garden high above Texas Avenue, Nia Vance stood in a simple white sundress, watching her city glow beneath her, strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind, and she smiled without turning around. "Late, Mr. Sterling," Nia teased. "Board meeting ran long," Malachi murmured against her hair. He was now the official chief security officer of Vance Global, though everyone in the building knew his real title, the man who never left the Queen's side. "I have something for you. Chloe already gave me the quarterly reports," Nia laughed. "This isn't a report," Malachi said quietly. He turned her around gently, and then to Nia's complete shock, the 6'4" former Special Forces soldier who had faced down armies without blinking, dropped to one knee on the rooftop, his hands actually trembling. In his palm sat a ring. Not a massive diamond. A dark, rare, beautiful stone, strong and unbreakable, set in platinum. "Nia Vance," Malachi said, his deep voice thick with emotion. "I have guarded presidents, billionaires, and secrets worth more than this building. But the night I wrapped my jacket around you in the rain, I started guarding something I never wanted to give back. I don't want a contract. I don't want a salary. I want your mornings, your storms, your victories, and your tears. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never stand in the rain alone again." Nia's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time they were the sweetest tears she had ever cried. "Yes," Nia whispered, then louder, laughing and crying at once. "Yes, Malachi Sterling. Forever, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, rose to his feet, and lifted her into his arms as the Houston skyline blazed gold around them, and somewhere below, the city that had watched her fall now watched her fly. So what did we learn from Nia Vance's story? Family. We learned that the people who betray you at your lowest are showing you who they really are, and you should believe them. We learned that losing everything is sometimes the only way to discover that your real wealth was never in a bank account. It was in your mind, your heart, and your courage to stand back up. And most of all, we learned that true love doesn't try to cage you or control you. Real love wraps its jacket around you in the storm, fights beside you in the dark, and kneels before you in the sunlight. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember their own strength. Subscribe for more stories like this one and drop a comment telling me, what was your favorite moment of Nia and Malachi's journey? Until next time, family, stay strong, stay loved, and never forget, The rain doesn't last forever. Your sunrise is coming.